Alright guys, so we got to request the S21 Ultra versus the OnePlus 7 Pro. There are a lot of you guys I noticed are looking to upgrade your 7 Pro, and I definitely am thinking about upgrading by next year. I'm not quite, I haven't just nailed it down. It's really hard to replace this phone because this is still one of the best phones that you can pick up, period. But I understand there are phones with like just better specs and stuff, and the S21 Ultra is very convincing buy. I've really been enjoying this phone. So let's go ahead and get to it here. So S21 Ultra, it is going to cost you $750 for a refurbished version, and then a new one is still around $1,000 bucks. But also remember, there is a S22 Ultra coming in, I think, going to be announced January or February, so look out for that. So you might want to hold off, but it really depends on if you want this phone now or whatever. If you find it for a good deal, I said, go for it. OnePlus 7 Pro, if you still want to pick it up, $300 bucks, still an excellent buy, in my opinion, the best phone you can get still today. So let's go ahead and talk about the hardware. So the S21 Ultra here, it is a premium design glass back, and it does have a metal rail on this phone as well, and it's IP68 dust and water resistant. Now the OnePlus 7 Pro is also a premium design. It is a glass back, aluminum frame as well here, but it does not have an official IP rating, but you can get this phone wet. It won't break immediately or anything like that. If you check the size here, as we can see, the S21 Ultra is definitely thicker and much heavier than the 7 Pro, and they look to be the same height actually. So they're about the same size. So that is they're both massive phones. They both have stereo speakers, USB Type-C. You can see. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the displays on here. The S21 Ultra does have a dynamic AMOLED display, 120Hz HDR10+, 6.8 inches, 1440p, 515 for the PPI. The OnePlus 7 Pro has a full screen, no notch display. It is also a AMOLED display, 90Hz HDR10+ at 6.67 inches, and it is 1440p 516 for the PPI. So both beautiful displays here. Now the S21 Ultra does rank the highest as far as screen quality, so it's got one of the highest rated. But looking at both displays, they kind of look the same to me. The only difference I can see is the OnePlus 7 Pro does have more of a curve to the display, but I've never really gotten accidental touches with this phone. And also another big thing that you will notice, I will say that it's definitely noticeable, is the 120Hz versus the 90Hz. So it just feels a bit more instant and fluid on the S21 Ultra. The OnePlus 7 Pro's 90Hz display is still nice and smooth, don't get me wrong, but it definitely just does not feel as smooth as the 120Hz. And the same thing goes for 144Hz. If you guys have ever tried that type of phone, that one feels even more instant than the 120Hz. As far as screen quality goes, I still prefer the 7 Pro just because of the full screen design here. And if you've never really seen this phone, how they're able to achieve that is the pop-up camera. The camera pops up, so you don't have the selfie cam up front. So yeah, display wise, I really like the 120Hz on the S21 Ultra, but I really like the full screen display on the 7 Pro. So it really comes down to personal preference here, but just know, two awesome high-res displays. I mean, these things are just crystal clear, very beautiful, very color accurate displays here. Alright, so let's talk about the specs a little bit more. We do have Android 11 on the S21 Ultra. It will be getting Android 12. And then we have the Snapdragon 888 chip on here, and we have the Adreno 660. No SD card support, 128 gigs of internal storage. This one is the 256 gigs of internal storage and 12 gigs of RAM. On the 7 Pro, we also have Android 11 on here, Snapdragon 855, Adreno 640, no SD card support, 128 gigs and 6 gigs of RAM. Now, majority of the time they're selling the 256 gigs and 8 gigs. I have no clue how I ended up with the, the 6 gigs of RAM version, but you should get the 256 fairly easily for the same price. Now, I will show you guys the Geekbench scores here, and we should see a slight difference in terms of speed here, so we can see just much better scores on the S21 Ultra here. Let's go ahead and launch some apps and see what we get here, see if we see like a slight difference or whatever. Actually, not that bad. Not bad at all. The 7 Pro is still able to keep up with this phone. Yeah, so, you know, overall, like, the 7 Pro, the S21 is going to be overall smoother. Like, if I get a ton of stuff going on this phone, then you might see, like, you know, significant difference. But as far as just your basic app launching, I'm just not seeing, like, a significant difference here. Let's go ahead and try Jetpack. Alright, so as we can see, Snapdragon 855 is still able to hold up pretty well against the 888 chip here. Now let's check out some heavier gaming like PUBG here. Now the kind of interesting thing here with the PUBG graphics is that the 7 Pro is actually able to play at the 90 frames per second and the S21 Ultra is not. So they have the same graphic settings, or yeah, they have the exact same graphic settings. But so I guess technically the 7 Pro plays PUBG better since I can play at 90 frames, I guess. I just want to see, like, can I notice the difference between the 90 FPS and that's the standard? Oh yeah, I can notice the difference immediately. Cause I never played this game. I think this is the only phone I own that is able to play at 90 frames, and you can definitely tell it feels instant. I wonder what this plays like at 120 hertz. So that would be nice if we got a 120 hertz option on PUBG. This like feels instant, like it's like zooming. Let's see. Yeah, that feels slower. Definitely slower. So this is playing at like, I guess 60. Jeez. Yeah, so yeah, that's strange. So optimization, I don't know why the 7 Pro has optimization. What other phones have 90 frames? I wonder. Alright, let's talk about getting into the phone here. Fingerprint scanners are both very fast on both of these guys, and you also have face unlock on both too. So that's really nice. And the face unlock is pretty cool on the 7 Pro because every time I unlock this phone in front of other people, they always get amazed, and it's always like a thing. So when you see that pop up, it's just like it just looks crazy to people, and it's like, oh, what kind of phone is that? But yeah, so let's go ahead and talk about the additional features here. So Samsung has a lot of stuff in their phone, as far as the Samsung desktop support, the wireless power share. Also, you have secure folders. Both of these phones have NFC, so you do have a lot of software features with the One UI. As far as Oxygen OS, still one of my favorite skins. It keeps everything fairly simple. So if you want something that's kind of customizable but also very clean, Oxygen OS is definitely a very nice thing to have here. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about image quality. If you do want to upgrade because of the cameras, it's definitely a great upgrade. The S21 Ultra does have much better cameras in almost every respect. It's got a 108 megapixel standard lens, a 10 megapixel periscope telephoto lens, 10 megapixel telephoto lens, and then a 12 megapixel ultra wide that also acts as a macro camera. So you're just getting more cameras, and I can shoot in 8K at 24 frames on this phone. 40 megapixel selfie cam that also shoots in 4K 60. Images are excellent on here. This thing can do up to 100 times zoom as well. It is just a fantastic phone to take, photos on. It's just excellent in low light, good light. It is definitely a top tier camera. So if you definitely want the best of the best as far as cameras, it's up there with the Pixels and iPhones and stuff like that. So you're definitely getting your money's worth with that. The 7 Pro is definitely a still, I think, a respectable shooter still. Now, it's just not as good as the flagships now, but 48 megapixel standard, 8 megapixel telephoto, 16 megapixel ultra wide, using 4K 60, and then a 16 megapixel 1080p front facing cam, and it does a good job at taking photos, especially in good lighting. Now it's only when you kind of pull it out of you know, good lighting does it kind of struggle. Sometimes you have to edit photos, color can be a little off and stuff like that, so it does have those kind of problems. Now you can throw Gcam on here and get better photos, but overall I still think the S21 Ultra is still going to be the better camera upgrade here. It's just, you know, it's just a very good camera system, so great cameras on both. Now you're also getting a pretty good battery upgrade here. On the S21 Ultra you do have a 5000 milliamp battery on here, and you have 25 watt charging, so this actually charges slower than the 7 Pro. The 7 Pro charges at 30 watts, and then on the and this has wireless charging as well, and again that reverse wireless charging. The 7 Pro does have a 4000 milliamp battery, so slightly smaller, and then it charges at 30 watts, but this phone has no wireless charging, unfortunately. So as far as battery life, you are going to get better battery life in general. I found myself, you know, just not having to charge the S21 Ultra as often as the 7 Pro, but both of these phones are actually all-day phones. You can, you know, go on full charge on both of these phones. You'll just get better battery life on this one. So be sure to let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.